You're listening to the Racer to Racer podcast presented by Race 92. Race 92 is a vintage-inspired racing apparel brand specializing in celebrating vintage race culture and adapting to motorsports today. Check out race92.com to see the many different shirts we offer. I'm your co-host, Aaron McTee, other co-host. You may have seen him walking out of great clubs with a big old smile on his face. You've probably seen him at a dirt track. He is the man, the myth, the legend, Scott Bowie. Hey, Scott.
Hello, Aaron. How are you? Oh,
I'm
man,
doing good.
I got a lot going on. None of it good, bud.
Yep. Well, hopefully, I know obviously you've had a rough past week losing your mother, and hopefully, things start looking a little better for you coming up.
Yeah, I appreciate that. No, things are all right, man. Just it's been a lot of stuff all at once, but man, I gotta be honest with you. Looking forward to this. I've been sick since Friday, and we just finished a great podcast with a young man, and it's really made me feel a lot better. And man, I'm so glad I did it. And it's someone I've been wanting to talk to for quite some time, so I'm so glad we did that.
Absolutely. So today we have a great show. The guest is Michel Jourdain Jr.
Yeah, here's a guy I didn't know a lot about, but man, I really enjoyed talking to him. He's just a good dude, man, and just really enjoyable to talk to.
Yeah, he's driven in a couple Indy 500s, and this is a guy who's driven in rally. He's driven I apologize, I don't know the exact term, but he drives like the big semi trucks in Brazil.
Right, yeah.
So he's driven just about everything, which is really cool. Before we get into news, just wanted to thank everyone for listening and watching. If you haven't already, make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, as well as subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere else where a podcast can be found. We're most likely there. We definitely appreciate all the support. Definitely looks like our numbers have been going up a little bit, so we really do appreciate that.
Yeah, I can't thank the people enough. And while the number 50 doesn't sound great to a lot of people out there, man, we got 50 subscribers, and that means the world to me because, I can't believe 5 people want to hear what I have to say, let alone 50. So I just want to thank everybody and very appreciated, and just can't thank you enough.
And we're definitely looking forward to future episodes. We definitely have some really, really big names planned. Some really great ones coming up. Some we've already recorded, some we haven't. So it's been a blast so far, and can't wait to see what the future has in store.
Yeah, we've got a really big name in auto racing coming up. That was just confirmed right at the end of our interview we just did. But I will tell you that as much as I'm looking forward to doing that one, the one we just did was equally as important, and the one you're getting to watch here in a moment was equally as good. So just like I said 100 times on here before, or how many episodes we've done, just thankful to everybody who watches.
Yep. So racing news. We don't have as much racing news as we may have had the past couple of weeks, but NASCAR race.
Yeah, NASCAR. They had a really clean race right up until near the end.
Mm-hmm.
They ended up stacking them up as they typically do at the end of NASCAR races. But they are set now for the playoffs, and Kyle Larson was your regular season champion.
I have a question about that. Do you know, so a regular season champion, you can't say he's a Cup Series winner, can you? Is he considered?
I don't think so. I find that very confusing myself.
It is.
I just, man, sometimes sayings just need to be, what's the old saying? Kiss, keep it simple, stupid. And they sure have. While it may not be complicated, it's convoluted, and and that's, I don't mean that against anybody. I think that they're just trying to make it. They're trying to make entertainment instead of just letting it be entertaining. And I just don't think you can manufacture spontaneity, and I think that's what they're trying to do. But who knows, man? Maybe I'm wrong. I know the crowd was way up So, good for the drivers, good for NASCAR. Um, so, who am I, right? I'm just some guy who runs his mouth. Uh, but it was an okay race. I actually sat down and watched it. Um, Kind of an off race for Larson. He really wasn't in the mix the entire race. He hung on the back a lot. Of course, he was supposed to start in the pole. They had some sort of inspection issue. Had to start in the back, and then he would run up to top 10, and he'd fall back. And I think he was just maybe trying to keep the car. Maybe he was just trying to win that regular season championship, and instead of just really running hard at it, he thought that was the best way to get it.
Yeah, well, other news, USF 2000, Miles Rowe won the.
Yep.
Where were they racing, Scott?
I don't remember. I do not remember. I forgot to look.
It was a
up where
doubleheader. I think it was a doubleheader, and he won. I think the second race.
Yeah, and I just don't remember where it's at. I didn't bring it up on my phone to look at.
But he's obviously part. Yeah, he's obviously part of the Force Indy team, which was part of the diversity. What was the name of the program?
I'm not sure what they call it.
Race for Diversity.
Yeah, again, man. It's just, to me, they're racers, and I just try to, keep it at that, because to me, they're just racers. So, good for him. I think that's awesome. I think it's awesome for that team. That has to feel good for everybody. And it just has to be so validating for him. And I think Willie T. Ribbs, who was we just released his podcast the last 2 episodes. I think he had a hand in that, leaned on Roger a little bit, and they put that deal together. And and obviously he knows talent.
Yeah.
And man, good for him. And and again, man, I've been sick, like I said, so I didn't have a chance to take a bunch of notes in that. But there is a team that is being formed with Emmett Smith in NASCAR to run Xfinity races. It is, again, it's going to be kind of underneath that diversity umbrella.
Right.
So that's going to be great. Hopefully that brings a lot of eyes into the sport and a lot of fans. And man, things are looking up. And
absolutely.
like I said, the crowds were way up. So I don't know if it's the fact that people are just tired of being tired, or they're just ready to get out in the world, or if it's just a sign of the times that they're traveling. It's hard to tell, but it was a good weekend. Justin Grant ended up winning the Kokomo SmackDown. I think he won 2 of the races up there, possibly. So congratulations to him. Big weekend for him. So that's kind of all there was.
Something else to mention, it looks like Romain Grosjean's going to be racing for Andretti.
Yes. Unfortunately, that does not bode well for one of our previous guests in RHR. And I sure hope he lands somewhere, because
I definitely think he will. I mean, you look at what he's done in IndyCar. I mean, at a minimum, I think he's definitely going to be Indy only at a minimum.
Yeah, boy, I sure hope he's more than that. But
absolutely. Great guy.
And then we keep saying nothing happened, but Jimmy Johnson took his first oval test today at Texas. Yeah. Said he had to let his eyes calibrate after running some laps there. I see that he even shaved for the event, so I'm not sure what the significance was in that, but he talked about it, on social media. He talked about how much he enjoyed it, and hopefully that leads to him running the full schedule next year. I know a lot of people think that will lead him to more opportunities to win, run up front, and I hope it does. I hope it does. I will tell you that I think Tony Kanaan is every bit as equal a race car driver as Jimmy Johnson, and it's a tough go for Tony right now. So, as great as these guys are, this young group of guys has come along. It's making it tough for everybody.
Absolutely. Well, without any further ado, we'll go ahead and get into the Michel Jourdain Jr. interview.
Yeah, again, thanks to everybody. This is another great one. Maybe you don't know much about him, but he great talk, very personal guy, and please enjoy.
Our guest today has 2 wins in ChampCar and drove in 2 Indianapolis 500s, one being in 1996 and the other being in 2012. He's driven in many other forms of racing as well. We are joined by Michel Jourdain Jr. Hey, Michel, how are you doing?
Aaron, how are you guys? Thank you very much for having me, and happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Definitely. Thank you for being on. And and you've been involved in, as we'll talk about, many different forms of racing. How did you first get interested in racing?
Well, I was born at the track. You know, my dad, my uncles raced.
Right.
You know, and then my dad started promoting races. You know, he racing in Mexico was not very good when at some point in his career, so he had to start promoting so he could drive, and then that became his job. So, you know, his first race he promoted was in 1975, and I was born in 1976. You know, plus my uncle Bernard, my other he's my their other brother. You know, they were 9 brothers and sisters, but 3 drove for a long time. A couple of other, just a few. My mom's only other brother also was racing at the time. You know, so it was pretty much. I mean, I cannot remember part of my life without being at the racetrack.
Absolutely. So when was the first time you actually got in a I would get, did you first do go-karting, or what was the first thing you drove?
I started racing cars right away. I was 12. Um, it was, I don't know if you know, like a Formula V, you know,
Right.
with the
Mhm.
VW air-cooled engine. The original Formula Vs are 1200 cc's. These are with the latest engine that was the 1600 cc. But you know, the same, the Beetle suspension and rear, the transmission, all that, with a smaller chassis than a Formula V, with a roll hoop, you know, to cover. It was for kids. It was a class for kids between 12 and 16 years old. So that was my first serious racing.
Right. So would you say that your original goal getting into racing was to maybe driving Formula One, or was it to, driving the Indy 500 like your uncle?
Well, um, I don't remember. You know, for me, IndyCars was, I think, was always more in my radar. My dad did the 2 IndyCar races in Mexico City in 1980 and 81. You know, one of the, I mean, it's hard when you're so little. It's hard to remember what's first. You know, but I can remember being in a car, sitting in a car, and these huge mechanics pushing the car.
Right.
So I was probably then 3 or 4 years old, you know, um, and and then I remember when Jose Legarza was leading the Indy 500 in 1981 as a rookie. I remember watching the race. The same, I was in 1981 in May. I was 4 years old. I can remember uh, watching that, and then, you know, the first IndyCar race I remember that I went was in 1987 in Phoenix. My uncle was racing Super Vs. And, you know, for me, it was, I remember my dad talking to Jose Legarza. I went to Jose's wedding, you know, so, and then he became my boss. My last year in Mexico, he had a team and I drove for him. So,
Oh.
and then, of course, my uncle, you know, when he did a couple of races in 88 and did the full season in 89, he got hurt in 90. And in 91, that was my 15, as I was turning 15 in September, but I got an early birthday present from my grandmother to go and sit in the 500 and to see my uncle, you know, and for me, I mean, I can remember that day. We were in a suite coming out of turn 4, and poof, it was amazing, you know. And we went to the paddock, to the garage, Sunday morning or Saturday, probably Saturday, and I remember sitting in his car. So it's just the greatest event in the world, And for me, I mean, I can remember that day sitting there thinking I have to do this race one day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing, and at 15, it had you'd already been racing by that time. So then to know that you're kind of on that path, and then to see what your goal ultimately could be, that had to be pretty. That had to be a pretty strong moment for a young person such as yourself at the time you were at that time.
Yes, I mean I was still 14 because I turned
Right.
15 in September, and I was thinking 15 because in '96 it was five years later that I was doing the race. I was starting the race, and of course at the time 5 years felt like 20,
Mhm.
Right.
but it's amazing that 5 years later I was racing there. Um, I mean, my son is 16. He just started his first race 10 days ago, and it's amazing to think, Jesus, this guy in 3 years could be driving an Indy car. Or myself, I was 3 years older than him and driving an IndyCar. It's crazy to think about that. And but yes, it's the only thing. I mean, it was like, going back, it was like I was going to do it. It was like a matter of time or when it was going to happen. But I had no doubts in my mind that I was going to do it.
Right.
At what point when you started your racing career did you think to yourself, man, I can do this? I know there's always that want to, but then there's always that moment of realization that, hey, I can do this.
Well, it's in racing in Mexico. I mean, at that time when before I went to the States, the main class I was racing in Mexico was Formula 2, which was based on it was a copy of a Ralt RT4, same car as the Formula Atlantics, same Goodyear tires they used before the Yokohamas. And the drivers there had a lot of experience, like even my uncle Bernard, after the IndyCars, he came back. Carlos Guerrero, before before he went into the IndyCars, he did a season, part season. He went there, but we had Allenberg, which started some Formula One races, and a lot of guys that raced in Europe, and they did good, but they were very talented, but just not that little bit to make it. So I was racing these guys when I was 14, 15. And at some point I realized, if I could, I I was one of them. And when Adrian went to Indy cars, he was not racing in Formula 2 before. He was racing in Formula 3. It was the two main championships, but we had many more. It was like in Formula 3, for an example, there was 5 big guys. In Formula 2 was 10 big guys, and some were racing in both. And I thought, I mean, for sure, I'm racing against the guys that Adrian was racing, So so I thought, if he can do it, I can do it for sure, So there is no reason why I couldn't.
All right.
So your first time ever on an oval was it Phoenix in 1996, or did you do some testing before then?
Well, I did the test in the West, I think it was called. That was
Mhm.
my first time in an IndyCar in the oval. Everybody thought we were crazy, my dad and myself, because the mechanics were asking me like, Michel, what have you driven before? In the Formula 2, it was like 200 horsepower, Oh, have you raced in ovals? Yes, in the semi trucks, I was racing. I think you can see me better here.
Yeah.
In the semi trucks, I was racing in Mexico. I was racing like Neon Challenge. So I had driven a couple of oval races, both in a Neon Challenge and the semi trucks. They thought this guy is going to kill himself, you know. And I was 19, but I looked like 15, and I was so skinny. My dad says that when I left the pit lane, the guys were high five, you know, thinking, this guy didn't stop. And I did good, you know. My first race in the team, we had Fermin Velez, which had been the IMSA champion, and he had been a world champion in sports cars. Michele Alboreto, which needs no introduction, and Lynn St. James, you know, when they had all this experience, and I was the fastest qualifier for the team, you know. So you know, looking back, it's like, I mean, I remember, you know, coming into the track into Phoenix, and the cars looked so fast, and from the outside I didn't think I could do it. And even the first couple of laps, the speed, and it was so fast, but I did adapt quickly, and I don't know if it was just because I had respect, you know. I did have big respect because I have always had big respect for the history of the cars and the drivers there. You know, I was racing with Eddie Cheever, Ari Loyen, like Michele Alboreto. I mean, all these guys that were so huge. So I did have respect, but somehow I was able to adapt quickly compared to the history and the cars I had driven before, you know.
Right, absolutely. So, kind of talk about your first year at Indy. When did it kind of set in that you you had a chance to race in the Indy 500?
Well, I did the first IndyCar race in Phoenix. You know, this was like a personal project my dad had at some point. I remember uh, exactly the moment I was in the Mexico City racetrack. My dad called me from the office, and he said I went crazy. He met before Dick Simon. It was the first year of the split from the IRL and kart, and my dad told me, you know, I just called Dick Simon. I I told him, you know, Carlos Guerrero was there with Herdis and that same team. They were always famous for putting cars in the speedway. You know, he thought this is a good chance to make the Indy 500 because, you know, because of the split, the top teams are in kart. Plus, Dick Simon has always good speedway cars. You know, so we went to Orlando to meet him, and he told my dad, you know, now I sold it, half of the team to Andy Evans. He makes a call on drivers. First, Andy told my dad when he saw me, he's like, hey, you want to kill your son or what? He's so small. But it's like, okay, let's test him. We tested, we went good. Okay, so we found the money, not all the money to do the race, but we found half of it. And Andy said, okay, bring the money and we'll put him in the car. I crashed. You know, my dad signed in for the crash damage, and at the end of the race, Andy came. Okay, we'll talk about the car, but I want Michel testing next week in Indy, for no charge, no nothing. You know, so when I was in Indy, I went and did the seat fitting because I think I raced like in a Lola 94, and I think the test was going to be in a 95 car or vice versa, something. I had to do a seat fitting. And I was by myself in the hotel there in Indy, and Andy Evans called me and said, Michel, are you sitting? I said, no. And I was this is before cell phones, you know, so I was very obedient, and I sat there next to the table. And he says, okay, Michel, here it is, the Carlos sponsor, which I knew them. I had never driven for them in Mexico, and actually in Mexico for that year, I had offers from pretty much every other team but them. So which was very strange because they had Freddie Van Buren, which was supposed to be like the successor for Carlos. And he said, okay, Herdes has contracted 9 races in kart plus the Indy 500. And I just told them that if they put you in the car, I'll put the money for the other 6 races.
Oh, wow.
And because Carlos had done, I think if I remember well, the first race was Homestead. I think Homestead, Rio, and Australia, I believe, and Surfers. Yeah, they had come back from Surfers. And so that's poof, crazy, because we were working on trying to get the money ourselves to do the Indy 500. And then, my dad came in a little later. I was going to drive in the speedway the next morning for the first time. And when my dad came in and I told him what happened, and we just couldn't sleep. He's like, "Hey, go to sleep. You're driving in Indianapolis Motor Speedway tomorrow." And it's like, "I know, but I just can't sleep." And I did good. I remember my first day, I ran like 220. The wind started picking up. 222. I went my first day. I think Tony, we were rookies that year, Tony Stewart and myself, and I think Tony on his first day had gone like 221 for whatever. I mean, of course, he went much faster than I did in the month of May, but still, they were impressed. They cut it short. The wind started picking up, and they said, "Okay, we have to start getting ready because like in 10 days we had Long Beach, and I had never driven a car in a road course." So they said, "Okay, well, it's good. We'll take you to Firebird." I don't know if you guys ever been or in Firebird, but it's completely open. Say, "Okay, here you can spin everywhere. We bring you here so you understand what happens." I was I I was very obedient again, and I was spinning like crazy and getting a hand sideways everywhere. And at some point I remember I was spinning, waiting for the car to stop, and suddenly just boom, a big hit. And there was like, the hose when they dig for the water to come from one side to the other.
Yeah.
And I destroyed the car. And so that was like getting ready for Long Beach. So then we went to Long Beach, and then to the month of May. It was still a full month of May back then. So it was good. They took me little by little, qualified eighth. And I mean, I can remember so much about that month. And coming out of Gasoline Alley for qualifying, it was so cold that day, and coming out for the race, it was all these great memories.
Right. One thing that I've asked a lot of people who race at Indy, and a lot of people with like kind of a road course background like yourself, we kind of got answers kind of all over the board, but did you think that the oval was kind of more? It's because it seems like a lot of road course drivers are very successful their first time at Indy. Do you think that you kind of have to approach the speedway more like a road course because each turn is kind of different, or do you kind of view it more as an oval?
No, 100% like an oval, because although each corner is different, each corner is different every day, or even every lap, that you gotta be watching the air socks. How do you say air socks? No?
Yeah.
Wind socks, huh?
Wind socks, yep.
Wind socks, yes, sorry. And through practice, I mean, especially the super speedways, they are even completely different than a short oval, the wind and how everything has to be so perfect, every change they have to measure it. So I think it's about being patient and trusting the people. And I was lucky. I was surrounded by very good people that first year, and I mean, we went to Milwaukee after that, and it was disastrous, but it was Milwaukee. It can do that to everybody. But at the end of the year, I finished second in Vegas, and I was very fast. So it's it's, I think, in the ovals you depend so much more in the car, and I think it's about having good people around you and trusting them and working with them.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Boy, especially for a young driver like you were at the time, kind of given a little bit of a license to say, "Hey, you can make mistakes. We'll get it fixed. Don't worry about it." I mean, that has to be a big thing, because if you're, again, at that age, trying to find the limit, but also trying to save the equipment and everything else, it's very hard.
Yeah, I mean, looking back, I'm sure they kept me with a lot of downforce, but not a lot, but enough. I mean, I qualified eighth, so it was good, but I'm sure they could have still, I could have still been a little bit faster. But we didn't practice many pit stops. That was one thing. I mean, we had a bearing problem and we lost like 13 laps in the pits. But they kept me at a limit. But the experience, it's so relative. You know, um, Emerson Fittipaldi and Alonso Jr. and Bobby Rahal at the maximum level of experience with top teams. They didn't make it, so it's not about experience, because nobody
Right.
had more experience. I mean, yes, AJ and Mario Andretti, but other than two of them, who had more experience and been so successful than Bobby, Lilal, and Emerson, and Paul, about it's not about having the guts to do it, and for
Right.
me it's kind of similar. I went into 2012 after 8 years of not driving an Indycar. My plan, and I told the team always, is like, we had to approach it as if I was a rookie. In qualifying, the Hondas were not as strong as the Chevys, but I think I was like in row 7 or something like this, 6 or 6, like 7. But in the row right in front of me, it was the two Ganassi. I mean, Dario Scott and Takuma Sato. Like the
Mhm.
top Honda cars,
Right.
and I was like point 0.1 of a mile slower than them. And then the year after, I didn't make the grid. I think, of course, I think the car was not good, and they came to think that there was something with the floor. That year, the team was not as strong. In 2012, Takuma almost won the race. And in the race, I kept going forward, and I was in the top 10 after not driving an IndyCar race for 8 years. And then, we made a pit stop in a yellow. They called me in when there was a yellow. I came in and they gave me a drive through under green, and I lost a lap. And from the top 10, I went to the back. But I thought, I did so good. Next year is going to be easier. Next year I will fight for the win, and I didn't make it. So it's just the ovals. My best race was Milwaukee 2003, and my worst races were ovals. So they are just like, it's impossible, I think, to really have. I'm sure even Rick Mears and all the top oval guys will tell you they had many terrible oval races.
Right. What was did you have such a big layoff between 500 starts?
Well, we stayed in CART.
Mm-hmm.
My sponsors wanted to be there. Um, and then when they split, long story short, I had some opportunities, but my sponsors, they were from Mexico. They wanted to stay in ChampCar. Uh, it's easy now to say mistake, because, I would have, should have, could have. It's very hard.
Right.
But then, Ford wanted me to go to NASCAR. I went to NASCAR, and the same. It's such a huge transition and so difficult. And the team went bankrupt halfway through the season. Had no much money. So we started. I mean, I had some very good races and some terrible races. But if you look at everybody that has made that transition, even in top teams, it's so difficult. So, and then, when the team went bankrupt, had to stop racing, and then, we went to Roush, which was for sure a top team. But the same, I did like 7 races. I think I tested once. So it's just so hard. Uh,
Yeah.
so I got an opportunity to go to the WTCC. I never raced in Europe, and although I did race front wheel drive in Mexico, but cars with no power and street tires, going to the WTCC, the level of driving, it's crazy. Everybody's world champion or BTCC champion. It's crazy. And you go there, new track, 30-minute practice, qualifying, and race. And so it was difficult. It was supposed to be a 3-year deal, the same like NASCAR. It was supposed to be a long-term deal, but when the team goes bankrupt, they're bankrupt, and then my deal was with SEAT Mexico, which is like, you don't have that in the States. It's a Volkswagen brand, but they changed president, so he stopped the program. And from then, it was a mess. And And at some point, I actually went to. It all started because with Adrian, he called me once and said, "Let's go to see our old friends," and we went to Vegas in 2011. And I saw Bobby, and we were talking, and he said, "Why not we try to do Indy?" I said, that would be great. So I came back, I saw the sponsors, and they said, we would love to do it. And that that it happened, that was good. I mean, it hurts for me so much that it was the year after was my last moment, and to finish, it was not a really successful career. I was not a champion, but I did decent, and for me to come out of the car for the last time like that, it was quite painful, not the year after.
Right. So by 2012, did you expect to ever drive in the 500 again? Like, was it ever in the back of your mind, like after you drove ChampCar, like I'd like to drive the Indy 500 again, or was it just something that just kind of came up and you're like, I'm going to do it?
Well, I always wanted to do it. For me, I mean, Indy is so big, and I went to see it a couple of times, even when I was in ChampCar. I remember, I think in 1999. In 2002, Rahal entered the car for Jimmy. We were teammates, and
Right.
he drove the Miller car there, and I was begging Bobby to put a car. We were trying to find the money, but we couldn't find it. But when I went to NASCAR, and it was out of the radar, and so it was not much in my mind. So after when Bobby mentioned it, and so it's like, yes, let's try to do it.
Yeah, and you had a lot of success. I mean, what I would call a lot of success with Bobby. I mean, getting 2 wins in that era. I mean, great accomplishment in my book. Especially you won one at St. Louis. You got one win at St. Louis, and the other was in Canada, right?
I won in Milwaukee and Canada.
Yep.
And
you finished third. You finished third in the championship.
So yes, I mean, it's one of those that going back, if when I was 18 years old, you would have told me, Michel, this is going to be your career. Of course, it's much more than I could have ever dreamed of. But once you are there and you're so close to much more, I was quite close to. I mean, I led the championship in 2002 and 2003. In 2003, so many things went wrong. And still finished third in the championship in a single car team versus Forsyth with Paul and Patrick, and Newman Haas with Sebastian and Bruno, Patrick racing with Oriol. I mean, Adrian. I mean, it was not easy, So of course, to be competitive then, in the years before, sometimes I love watching videos, and with Twitter, they post old races, and it's like you see the grid. Sometimes, looking back, maybe I didn't qualify that good that day, and I qualified 12th. And you see the guys that are behind me, and Scott Dixon and Tony Canan and blah 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 blah, and it's like, so yes, I mean, I was, and I do believe that I was very lucky. I drove the era of the best cars ever. I think the cars have not been that cool since then, that fast, and of course, for safety reasons, they keep them slower. But the level of drivers, the tracks we raced all over the world in the coolest cars, with amazing drivers. I look back with great memories and thinking, it's what I lived, and something different. Maybe I would not be here. So I have great family, great kids, and I wouldn't change anything in my life or what I have right now.
Right. No, that's great. So when you came back in 2012 to the Indy 500, Did when you were out on track for the first time, did it kind of bring back memories? Like, was it kind of like riding a bike, like you kind of picked it back up again, or was the car just so much different? It just felt like you've never been there before, or what was that like?
It came back later. At the beginning, I mean, the first lap it was just so fast, on the wind and everything. It was like poof, and similar feeling to the first time. It's like, man, I have to go flat out through here. It's going to be impossible, and then you start building up. But I remember I did my refresher, and I mean, I do remember driving with a big smile in the car. I was so happy, and I was smiling and thinking something that I never did before. Before in my first, well, from 96 to 2004, you're always driving and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. And it was like the first time that I thought, man, this is the coolest thing on earth. And driving with a smile. I do remember that. And after that, you start getting to the limit, starting to trim out the car. Of course, like I told them, we have to be very conservative. I haven't been in the car for a long time, but it started coming back. On Fast Friday, quite early on, my car got on fire, and we, the last couple of steps by trimming it, we lost it, and we went into qualifying with a big unknown, and we still did good, and in the race, I took a conservative start, and after that I started moving up through the field, and started passing cars. At some point we had a bad stop, lost a lap, passed. I remember I started right behind Scott. He was in the lead. And I passed him. I was running behind Pagano and myself passed him. And we were riding, at the front of the field, thinking, I can probably pass him, but I didn't want to block him because maybe I pass him, but maybe we lose the lap, So I felt very, very comfortable that day, and I do think that I was performing at a good level and had a good car that year. The next year was not that good, but I do think, looking back, I could have been driving full time and still do good. And I'm still driving in Mexico. I won that championship last year, and I feel like I'm still competitive, but it's time for younger guys to take this opportunity. We went to Mid Ohio. I'm helping a guy, Salvador de Alba Jr. He's leading the Super Cup, the championship I won last year. He's leading it. He's leading the NASCAR Mexico Championship, and he tested on Tuesday with Andretti in the Indy lights, and we are working hard to try to get him a full season next year there.
So when you look at the car you drove in 96, car in 2012, do you think one was harder to drive than the other, or maybe something was different with the 2012 car? Kind of how, or do you think one was like more challenging than the other, or can you really compare them? It was like just too far away from each other.
Well, it was so far
Right.
apart, it was 16 years apart, if you drive one back to the other, the sensation and the speed, from what I can remember, it was quite similar. I think, the field was much more competitive in 2012. So I think you had to, I am sure I was much closer to the limit. My lap time, my steering in my qualifying session, it was all over the place. I was on the edge, and I'm sure in 1996 they had me quite conservative, but that's not because of the car. That's because of how competitive it was.
Sure.
So how much does when you just mentioned qualifying, you said the car was all over the place. Of course you have some limited tools to use in the car. How how much will that car change? And I realize it depends on how good the setup is, but just say over an average 4-lap qualifying run, do you notice the fall off immediately after lap 1, or is it just something that's gradual, or does it, like I said, is it just an immediate drop off?
Like you said, it depends a lot on the setup. You know, I mean, I'm sure in 1996 I had some extra downforce, so the car was quite similar. You know, in 2012, I remember I was moving everything, the weight jacker, the bars. I mean, everything. I was trying to modify my lines. You know, just because the car was totally on the edge. Um, in 2013, the car was so bad. I mean, I was faster in my warm-up laps than, because what they think is that the floor was coming apart, so suddenly it was stalling, you know, so suddenly I was losing all the downforce. So if I was lifting a little bit, the car was better. I looking back, I probably would have made the grid by lifting, but in the race we were disastrous, no? But I mean, you knew you had to go flat out, you know. So when I entered the corners flat out, the car just went bad. So yes, the main thing, it changes much because of the setup. But nowadays, when qualifying for the Indy 500, nowadays you are so on the edge to make the grid, you know, because I mean, probably 10, 12 guys wake up Saturday morning thinking they are okay to be on the grid, but after 12th, 13th, they are not 100% sure, you know, if the weather changes, it's so tight, you know, and so you have to be on the edge. And when you are so in the edge, you, after one lap, the tires start degrading, and you just think you know what's going to happen, but you're not 100% sure.
Right.
Well, I mean,
Willpower. Like,
yeah.
yeah. Hinchcliffe, when he didn't make it, I mean, you know, and that's what, you know, makes Indy, right?
Exactly.
You just don't know.
You just don't know.
Fernando Alonso one year is a absolute hero, and then next year he just can't believe what he went through. You know,
Exactly.
so
No, I know, and then I feel the pain. I mean, look at the names that haven't made that. I mean, you know, that made me feel better. You know, it's like, okay, if
right.
Penske with Emerson and Al Jr. and Paul Tracy didn't make the grid, everybody, you know, and Bobby, and of course, like you said, Kinchili, Fernando. I mean, so many huge names. I mean, Andretti with Ryan one year, no, they had to buy the seat from Foyt, you know, and tag. I mean, it's crazy.
No,
Yeah,
absolutely.
no, it is. It is absolutely crazy.
So in some of the other stuff you raced, so you raced in World Rally, right?
Yes, that's a funny story. In 2009, I don't know if you've heard of La Carrera Panamericana. It was Carrera Panamericana. It was a very big rally in the 50s. The Panamericana, it's a road that rode from South America to Alaska, no? Right. And in the early 50s, when they opened the Mexican part, the president wanted to have a race, and he called La Carrera Panamericana. Actually, the Porsche Carrera is named Carrera because of this race. You know, it was back then. It was a flat out race from the south of the border to the north of the border. You know, in one day it's like green flag to the next town, next morning, like that. Nowadays, it's more like a rally. And I had never done rallies. A friend invited me in a 1953 Studebaker. From the Studebaker, it only has the shape, you know, it's a stock car in the bottom. But we were doing a program. I was not a TV program in it, so I was not officially in the race, but my times were really good, very fast. And I won many stages. And so the promoters for the World Rally Championship date in Mexico, they were there and said, "Hey, we need to have a Mexican guy doing the full season. Are you interested?" And said, "Of course." So we pulled the money, and it was just so hard, because this other car, it's very heavy. It's like a stock car, and things happen very slow. Now driving, I was in the production series, but still, it's a 4-wheel drive, amazing, very fast cars, and the competition is crazy. And so this was 2010, and Ot Tanak was the champion, and he's still racing, and he's a world champion now and all that. So uh, the learning, making the notes, and
Right.
going through somewhere that you went 3 days ago in a different car at 40 miles per hour, and now you arrive at 120 miles per hour, and it's wet, and the cars went through there, and but great experience. I was improving, but then it was like a short-term deal, but it was something that I enjoyed, and good experience.
And that's got to be totally different from, racing at a racetrack. I mean, like you said, you have a co-driver, and a lot of people don't realize, I mean, co-driver is almost just as important as a driver, because I mean, if they give you the wrong notes or whatever, I mean, they can kill you.
Yes, it's you make your own notes, so you tell them what you want them to tell you, but this
Right.
is 3 days later, but it's a lot about experience. Like, if you see, the NASCAR champions are normally older than the younger open wheel cars. I think in open wheel racing, it's more about the ability and about how much you can push, about being in good shape, and all that, the talent. I think in stock cars, yes, talent is very good, but the experience is more important. No, I think champions are a little bit older. You need the talent, but you need to have all the experience. The cars are kind of different, and you go to Long Beach, and a guy normally is good in Long Beach every year. You go to Charlotte, and 1 year a guy is good in Charlotte, and the year is like in the speedway. It's kind of similar to that. But in rally, it's even more. I think there's only one guy that's been world champion younger than 30 years old. So knowing what you want him to tell you, to imagine how the corner is going to be there 2 or 3 days later, because they
Right.
destroy, 200 cars go through it, and they destroy the road, and they got an amazing speed. How do they do that? I still don't know. And some guys say, the rally drivers are the best in the world, but sometimes rally drivers come and do circuit racing, and they do terrible, because it's different. It's not that what I explain it is like, it's like when Michael Jordan went to baseball. It's still it was playing with a ball. It was still a ball game.
Right. Sure.
But it's different. He was doing better, but he went into the minor leagues, and then started going back. He was doing decent, but he didn't light the light of fire. And it's transitions like this, I believe, are somewhere comparisons like that.
Yeah, no, I love rally racing. I went to me and my dad went to Rally America race this year in Ohio. Went to one in St. Louis a couple years ago, and it gives you a whole new respect for it. That was my first time a couple years ago ever at a rally race, and I was hooked after that. I mean, it's pretty cool being in the middle of the woods, especially at night, and then just see a car just come flying by.
Yes, it's crazy.
And obviously, like Ken Block and Pastrana are doing that. And Ken Block, I know he did some World Rally. It might have been a couple years after you were in it. I think it was like
No,
2012, or was it the same year?
same. I think he still did more, but I remember. I remember I was in the production class. He was in the top class, but yes, it was 2010. He was still there.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that guy, very smart guy, obviously with DC shoes and everything he's done, with Gymkhana and YouTube. Very smart guy.
Very smart guy. Yes. Very, very smart.
So obviously, like you alluded to earlier, you're a father raising a young racer, and like you said, that his career is coming along. It's going to be here quicker than you think, right? I mean that his potentially he could be where you are, here in just a few short years, and knowing today what you didn't know then. Do you give your son a lot of advice, or do you let him kind of figure out on his own and just kind of guide him when he asks, or kind of are you hands off or more hands on?
Well, it was just his first race. It came quite quickly, you know.
Right.
I got divorced from his mom, 11 years ago. And he didn't come to, I mean, like when he was little, I mean, back then, I mean, I was racing in rallying. Of course, he just came to the rally in Mexico, but in rallies it's very hard to see, especially in 2010. They were 5 and 3, so they just saw me arrive to the station. It's like so nothing, and then so he saw me a couple of races. They came to see me to the Indy 500, but not many races. And then when I started racing back again, more back in Mexico, they wouldn't come to many races. So I thought that it doesn't interest him much. In 2014 or something, like 15, we went to Miami because in Florida he was diagnosed with ADD, and we found in Mexico, and a lot of in the world, they give them a pill, to calm them down. And we found a doctor that, gives them some therapy. So, and with Adrian, he lives there. So we spent the weekend there with Adrian, his kids. And, I guess he heard so much about racing, and the plane back, he said, "Dad, I want to drive." I said, "Okay." And so I told him, "You need a sponsor." "No, you sponsor me, and I sponsor your school. That's about as much as I can
Right.
afford. I pay for school, and that's all I can do." And I said, "Oh, I have money. I'll sponsor myself." "Okay, how much you have?" It's like $50, like, well, as I made the numbers, the blah blah blah, the go kart, the fuel, the mechanic, the travel, blah blah blah. It's like, oh, it's like for the first time that he saw, okay, math. You need math because you need to
Right.
work out the numbers. So he was like 9 years old back then, and he made a little presentation. He went to see some uncles and all that, and after a couple of weeks, he stopped. But then last year he started pushing again. With COVID. Uh, I got a simulator. I got invited to. It was called like a Legends race that we were racing on the weekends with some Indycar guys and ex Formula One cars, ex Formula One guys. So he would start driving on the simulator in the simulator sometimes. I said,
Oh yeah, that's right. I remember that.
I want to drive, and said, okay. So we got this car that I was telling you. We took him testing back in November. In the first day, he did pretty good for his first day. But with COVID, my other son was studying abroad. His mom in Mexico still last school year was full online through Zoom. So my other son was studying abroad and with classes, in the school. So his mom got him to go to this school, sorry, and so the first semester he was there, but then he came back. We took him testing. He did good. It was a 25 car grid, 12 rookies, but for the season, So he was the only one that was his first race. He out of the 25 cars, with just one day testing in November, one day testing in that Thursday, he qualified 15th, like fourth of the rookies. But I made him start dead last. It's like, they have a standing start. And I told him, they had to practice qualifying, a warm up, and the race. So I told him, this weekend we have 5 practices. Each session is a practice. It's learning. I told him, if you start there 15th, if you stall or somebody stalls, you crash in that. You lost the opportunity to learn. No, and some people were, you should let him do it. But I think it was the right decision. He started at last. I told him the first corner you cannot pass anybody, and then he started passing little by little. When he got past like the first 6, 7 cars, there was a big gap. There was a yellow. He came close. He was running third of the rookies, I believe, like 12th overall, and then his car stalled. A cable and had a problem, and his car just stalled. But he was, they did a podium for the experts or whatever, the regular guys, and a podium for the rookies. He was there in third, ready to pushing the guy for second. And I think, of course, it would have been cool for him to get a podium in his first race, but I think it's better in the long. It would have been too easy, And now he's hungry. He wants to do it. I was very proud of him. So coming back to how much I advise him, I think it's a little bit, yeah, a little bit, yes. But on the weekend, I was trying to stay a little bit away. I think sometimes you need to learn and you need to leave some things to really learn them. Because if everything is just told until you don't leave them, so you gotta let him make some mistakes and go from there. But this year, it's an eight it's an 8 weekend season. There was already three before, so he's not fighting for any championship. I want him to just learn. He did decently good, but how much talent he has, I don't know. Right now. I'm just happy that we travel to the races together. We get to spend more time together, and he gets to live a different life. I think sports, whatever kind of sports, is the best thing you can give you, especially at that age. Keeping him out of trouble. What happens in the next couple of years then is when we'll see, how good it is, and if we start trying to take it to the next level.
Yeah, I think that's great. And you've got the at the very least, you two now have a common ground, something you can really share, and a shared experience, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So, yeah, it's funny. You see some dads who are just so involved, like they want to tell their kids how to do everything, and then you see others, and honestly, you see kind of more the more successful dads. A lot of times, the ones who were maybe a little more successful in their career, they seem to pull back a little bit. I feel, and they're not quite as hard on the kids. They want them to learn kind of more the harder way.
Yes, because I mean, my dad was always very pulled back, especially in the States, but even before, I mean, my first 2 years in racing, I mean, I went testing twice, and I was 12. I started 12. I mean, I didn't have a driver's license. You need to test every day. I mean, as much as possible, and I was racing with guys that their dads were not in racing, so every weekend they were racing. So they were at the maximum. So you learn to push yourself more. Because when you have a disadvantage, you try to overcome those disadvantages. And if you make it too easy, then it's too easy. The same. I was happy that he was doing good, but I'm like, man, he's going to be in the podium in his first race. That's not normal.
Right.
Right.
And I was actually very proud, when he stopped. They pulled the car into the pits, and I came by, and his first question was, "What happened?" Well, I don't know. When they found out, I told him their cable broke, and he told me, "Was it my fault?" And he came out. Well, he finished. He came out of the car, sad and a little pissed off, but with the situation. But he was very good to the guys in the car. He was happy. At 30 seconds later, he was smiling, and it was what I wanted to see of him. Everybody told him how good he was doing, so he can do good. But at the same time, he respects now, the other guys, the mechanics, the job, that it doesn't come easy. And then we'll see. For me right now, I see it as like I said, like you said, to have something in common, spend the weekends together, and for him to learn life lessons for life, for everything that happened, I mean, if everybody that has gotten to IndyCar, or 99% of the guys that have gotten to IndyCar, have a story, behind them, and so many things go together, and so many things. So many times their career was over, and something happened. So it's, for him to make it to the big leagues, it's so hard. It's just not talent. So the chances are so small, but he's living a good moment, and we're going to live it together.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's kind of what it's all about. At the end of the day, no matter how it ends, the story, the ride itself is probably sometimes worth as much as the destination.
Exactly. No, like I told you before. I mean, if I could have, would have, should have, whatever, I would have been a champion, and I could have signed a huge contract. Probably, I had everything there, and maybe I could still be there and have huge amounts of money and trophies. But maybe I would have died in a crash later, or I get paralyzed, or I got married a fantastic girl. Didn't work out, but we had the best 3 kids. I got remarried. She has 3 kids. So I wouldn't change anything for this. So yes, the ride is the best, and to learn, and to know. I think it's what it's important to appreciate these opportunities, and whatever life throws at you, just take it and appreciate it.
Right.
Yep. No, I think that, that's definitely all you can really do. So outside of racing, obviously you do some like driver development stuff like you were talking about. And also you are hooked up with Hoosier Tire, right?
Yeah, we're the distributors for Hoosier Tire in Mexico. We promote the championship I'm driving because the sponsors asked me to. They want me to drive, but we promote the Supercopa, which is we have 4 classes. It's the semi trucks with Freightliner. We've done this for 7 years with them now. A touring car GT class. It's based on the TA2 chassis from How. How Racing. They built our chassis but it's like the TA2, but the chassis, the top is more like a GT car or touring car. But we put a 6-speed sequential transmission, paddle shifting, traction control, trying to have the good things of an American car, with a tubular chassis, but trying to make it more technological, like the European car, trying to differentiate ourselves from that. It has this Formula car that I told you my son drives. We call it Formula 5, and a motorcycle 600cc class that all the 4 classes race all those weekends. So it's good fun, busy, hard times, with COVID and the sponsors. Sure. Struggling really, really hard. But right now surviving is like winning, and so far we have survived, and hopefully this thing we
Are you guys facing the tire shortage problem that, like the American, like the sprint, like I come from more of a sprint car midget type background, and of course the late models and dirt cars and sprint cars and that, they're all got this tire shortage and that happening.
No, it's terrible. I know, because we have like a monthly distributors meeting, and everybody, but they tell us, and the distributors in the States, they know, all the other manufacturers have the same or even bigger problems. I think
right.
Hoosier has the problems, but less than the rest. It's a great company, let me tell you. We are so happy. We have worked on and off with them since 1993, when my dad bought the first tires from them, and they are the best partners. And I know how hard they are working to try to supply all these, and we all work together. For us, I mean, for everybody, shipping is big part of your cost. Imagine bringing a truck to Mexico. It's very, very expensive. So we try to put as many tires as we possibly can, But now, sometimes we bring 50 tires, because that's all we get, and it brings our cost higher up. But we try to work, and they say, okay, Michel, what's the minimum you need? Okay, because then they try to help somebody else, And sometimes, even having to adjust dates and trying to work together to try to get everybody together. But I know on the dirt is where everybody's hurting the most, and it's crazy because everybody's hurting, but selling more tires. So
Right.
Where is people getting their money from? I need to talk to all these. I need to talk to all these people to help me.
Well, Allgaier's, Justin Allgaier's dad,
Yeah,
Gator,
Mike.
has that. Yeah, Mike has a big distributorship here in Indianapolis and in Springfield, Illinois.
Yes.
And man, those sprint car teams will roll up there and just load up. I mean, tire after tire after tire if they're able to. It is
Yes,
stunning.
and they are good people. Of course I've met Justin and Mike there in the annual distributors meeting, and they are fantastic family, great business.
Yeah.
They bring everybody. It surprises me. I mean, how can be so successful, driving, successful with his family, and he knows everything about the business. He knows the tires, what they are selling, what they are having trouble. I mean, Justin is a smart guy, and when he retires from driving, I hope not in a long time, because he's giving us a good show, but he will do very good for their business.
Oh yeah, he definitely will. He's a smart kid. I first started watching him race when he was 12 or 14, something like that, and obviously just watching him come along. But yeah, he and his family just great people. So
Great people,
yeah.
yes. No, he's a good guy, good family, and everybody in Hoosier, it's a good family. Of course, now with the Continental buying them, it's becoming a little bit more corporate, but still, they are really good to work with.
Bob passed away. Bob Newton, right? His first name is Bob.
Yeah.
He passed away.
Yep.
What 5 years ago now, something like that.
Well, I don't know.
I think it was something like
No,
that.
probably no more than that.
Was it longer than that?
Oh yes, or maybe yes. It's just because I got more involved in the tires with my dad. When was that? Like in 2016, somewhere around then, and I think he had already passed away.
I couldn't remember quite when. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, his wife was just last year or the year before, no? Just a couple of years ago. Yes.
Yeah. So as you're, how hard was it? I mean, I guess you really haven't truly retired, but how hard was it for you to kind of, as you're getting a little older and maybe the opportunities weren't quite in IndyCar anymore? Was it hard for you to start making these transitions out of the sport and more into business, or was it something, like Bruno Junqueras had said that, he had already planned on being out of the sport kind of when he was, and a couple other people we've talked to is the same way. Did you already kind of see a transition for yourself, in the big picture as you were going along?
Well, for me, it's hard because some of the mistakes I've done in my career, the bad decisions I've made, come to because I love driving so much. I don't think I will ever retire.
Right.
I mean, how much and what I drive, I don't know. And actually now this past week now with my son, see him drive. I was so nervous watching, and I know that I at some point I will probably enjoy more watching him. And it's quite busy for me the weekends, because we promote the series, but the sponsors want me to drive, and I'm still driving. I'm still doing okay.
Right.
But then that weekend was crazy with him driving, me driving, two series, and the championship. It was crazy. So, just I don't care. To right now, if I drive, good. If I don't drive, I don't care too much, But there somebody invite me to a 24-hour race, I will do it. I mean, it's just for me. There is these guys have a dirt track up north in Mexico City, and they do like the same like a Legends race every year for like NASCAR Mexico drivers and famous guys. And I enjoy driving. I mean, if you saw the cars I drive, the Mexican drivers wouldn't drive them, the NASCAR Mexico days, and I don't care, and I was more successful than I don't care, like what I did.
Right.
I really enjoy to be behind the seat of a car, and so, but for how long I right now I'm at a point that I don't care too much.
Are you a naturally extremely competitive person? I mean, are you the kind of person that kind of wants to be the person who always drives, the person who always is kind of first out the door and that type of thing, or is that because a lot of races we've had on here, they're extremely competitive. They want to win at everything. Are you kind of that way, or are you more laid back?
No, if I am playing, I am giving him 100% in anything,
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, some things I don't care, but it's not a competition. But if there is a competition in it, I am in it, and I want to win no matter what.
Right. I know some people I won't even play board games with. They're just that competitive. So I think it varies a little bit, but you always find that really. You always see with racers, there's typically just a really strong competitive streak in them.
Yes. I mean, even for the board game, I mean, maybe you are not good at it, but you're trying your best, no?
Right.
Right.
I mean, I don't. I mean, sometimes in some board games, or if I play chess with my dad, I know he's better than me, and I know I mean, if he beats me, I understand he beats me, but I'm concentrated, I am trying to think, and sometimes, and at night, I'm like, oh, Jesus, why I didn't make that move, that does happen a lot, Or if I play tennis with the kids, I mean, they are, my wife's kids are now, 20, I mean, we have, between the two of us, we have 6 kids. The 4 boys are 20, 17, 16, and 14. So to keep up with them is hard, and so far, we haven't played like in the last year, but no one has beaten me yet. I know now the oldest one will beat me because he's been playing a lot, but still, I give my 100%. And even for them, if, some dads that let their kids beat them, is like, you're doing them damage. They have, they gotta, to beat you, they gotta work hard.
Right. No, I believe the same thing. I love that you just threw that in there, that they still ain't beat Dad yet.
Yes.
Yet.
Yes. And I know with my son, when with this Formula car, when we got it, it was last year, in the same track that he raced in Querétaro. And they gave it to us. It was in the weekend, and I started racing in a car similar to this, but this was, Jesus, in 1988. So what's that? 33 years apart, 32 years apart. So I go in, and in 3 laps, I mean, it's like starting guys, but still there's guys that have been racing 5-6 years these cars, and in 3 laps I was in P1 in the session, no. From then on, we went to the track. I did 1 lap, and on his first day, after like 30 laps, he ended up being a couple of tenths faster than me. So he was all happy. I did only 1 lap. And then he was, oh, I'm faster than you, I'm faster than you, I'm faster than you. And then on the weekend, he was like, on his fastest lap, he was like 2.5 seconds lower than what the lap I did with on that day, but it was serious practice for me. That time that I did only 1 lap, it was just to make sure the car brakes and that he jumps into a safe car, So he was like, come on, how can you do that? And I was proud. He's like, okay, still he knows now. He still knows. But if one day he beats me, like at some point, I couldn't beat my dad, and at some point I started beating him, and I'm sure it hurt him, but he was the happiest. I'm sure it must because when I started beating my dad, he was still being very competitive, and if that time comes, I am going to be the happiest, but I won't make it easy for him, for sure.
if if that time comes.
Yeah, maybe I retire before that, so to make sure I always was faster than him.
That's right.
So kind of in closing, so if you were, and this is a question I may start asking people, if you could go back in time and talk to 18-year-old Michel Jourdain Jr., would there be one piece of advice or something you would tell yourself, or would you just kind of let it play out?
No, of course, many. I mean, to work on my fitness. I think at some point my fitness was not very good, but I didn't have many people advising me. I mean, on my fitness, yes, and to look at it more as for my career. The fitness definitely in the car days. My first 2 3 years, I am sure I could have been more fit, and I probably made some mistakes in some races late in the races that I made a mistake because I got tired. I think looking back, like I said, they are looking it more as a business, but then maybe I would have not enjoyed it, or that
Sure.
things like that. It's so hard to know.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because yes, I had some opportunities that I didn't take or that I could have looked up for. So yes, it's so hard, but those two probably maybe moving. I spent a lot of time in the shop. I like to with the teams, but spending maybe even a little bit more time would have been probably a little bit better. Also, I enjoyed it a lot, but Mexico is so close. A lot of the guys, all the European guys were like, yes, if my home was as close, they would have lived at home. For me, when living in Mexico City, going to California is closer than for the guys in Miami, or vice versa. Going to the East Coast from the guys from the West Coast, it's quite close. So that's why I always live here. In the summer, when it was busy, I stayed, with a crew guy invited me to stay at home or something. But yes, spending a little bit more time at the shop with the team would have been good.
Absolutely. Well, there's a question that Scott always likes to ask, kind of as a last question before we close. I'll let him go ahead and ask it.
Yeah. So, I mean, and a lot of times the answer to this it can be very obvious after the discussion we've had. But I always like to ask, and it also gives a chance for you to acknowledge maybe someone you haven't spoke about. I always like to ask, who would you feel has been the most influential person in your career, or even someone you admired, or somebody who is like a champion of yours that maybe people don't know about?
Well, the most logic is my dad, because of course being
Right.
here and of course that's the most influential, definitely, no, and in my life as general, and I'm proud of that. But other than that, it's so many, I mean, because my dad, although he was big part, but I started my way quite early. He made the decision about calling Big Simon, and from then on. But still, there's a couple brothers, Alejandro and Jorge Devil Dogs in Mexico. They took me under their wing. They had a small team, low budget, and they took me under their wing at 14. And at the time, it was hard, but they made huge sacrifices for me, and they had kids my age, a couple older, a couple younger. But what they did for me, I mean, I love them so much. They are crazy important in my life. Josele was good, but Josele had a team. He saw potential in me. The sponsors wanted me in the car, and he had the Marlboro team, and he put me, and he was good to me. But it's not like but I was a good option for him then. But these two guys were incredibly important, and the events, that phone call I told you, it's something that he didn't have to do. He saw potential, and and that was, that's something that that was also quite important, because of course every team owner, every mechanic, every engineer, I really thank them, and but I think everybody at some point, they thought there is some potential, or there is also some good in having me. I think those, especially the Alejandro and Jorge Devil Dogs. Jorge passed away like 10 years ago, or a couple more, and it's very, very sad. A person that I miss dearly.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that answer. And there's oftentimes, like you said, there's so many people, and if you grew up in a racing family, it's typically it's going to be your mother or father or whomever. But it's always nice to hear about people that you would not normally hear about.
Exactly.
Because there are so many hidden heroes that help it, especially a young driver, along. So,
and for me, it's like that. They gain nothing from helping me.
Right.
Absolutely nothing. Actually, it cost them money, I'm sure. And having kids are the same age, that I'm sure would have probably been happy driving. So things like this, and for me, they are family for me. It's people that I love like family, and that I am and will always be thankful for everything they've done.
Yeah.
So yes, they are.
There it is.
I appreciate it. And once again, thank you so much for being on. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And it was such a great talk. And man, I just hope those racers keep finding money to keep buying tires, right?
Exactly. Yes, please. Yes,
God knows
yes.
how much tires cost.
Yeah,
Yes.
I've bought quite a few tires in my lifetime. So
Yes, but I mean, of course, the market in Mexico is much, much smaller. Most of the racing,
Right.
I mean, racing is 100 times smaller, and 99% of the racing in Mexico is done on street tires. So
Right.
I probably buy 100 times less tires than the Algayers do, but still, it's good, and we're trying to push it, and proud to be working with Hoosier, and try to grow with them.
Well, and like you said, I mean, Hoosiers been around a long time. They've really been a huge part of the sport. Through their points funds and just everything they've done that I know about here in America. And I don't think you could have a better partner. So
Yes.
So if you're choosing to sell race tires, that's ones I'd sell. That's for sure.
Exactly. Yes. No, that's a plan. Hopefully, something that will last for forever.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Well, again, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. You too, and thank you very much. And I'm always here. If at some point you want to discuss something or do this in a couple of years or next year or whenever, I'm happy to do it.
Absolutely.
All
yeah,
right?
no, we appreciate that. And yeah,
and I'm going to make sure Aaron puts it in his calendar. We'll follow your son's career,
Perfect.
and then we'll keep tabs on it.
Yes, perfect. Thank you very much.
Yep, and we'll see
All
either
right.
at a racetrack again, or I know you're usually a PRI. I'll be a PRI probably, so I'll see you there if you're there.
Yeah, we have a race that weekend, so maybe we'll be only on Thursday or something. It depends also on the Hoosier Distributors meeting. It's normally Monday and Tuesday, and then PRI from Thursday to Sunday. But we are supposed to be racing that weekend, so we don't know yet. But hopefully we'll see you there.
Absolutely.
All right.
Well, thank you so much, and yep, we'll talk soon. Thanks.
Sure.